Welcome everyone to Beauty from the Ashes. Today I have with me a woman who is amazing and determined, who says that dreams that won't fade are meant to be pursued. McKenna Hydrick, thank you for joining me, McKenna.
Thank you so much for having me, Jenny. I'm so excited.
That's awesome. I'm so excited to share your story. You are now married and you have 3 children, 3 boys, right?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's a lot of testosterone in the house, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I get to be the only princess, and I get to buy a lot of views, so it's great.
It works out, that balance, right?
Yes.
You have performed on the stage your entire life, and then in 2009 you released a demo and started into the music world and the music industry. You even opened for names like Tracy Lawrence, Eric Church, Easton Corbin, Randy Houser, and I know that there was sort of a roadblock that you hit in the middle of that, and can you tell us a little bit of what happened with your boys that kind of put that pause on your music career?
Yes. Well, prior to actually being in the music business, I was a high school English teacher, and I kind of left that to pursue the big dream. And so in my mind, I left this very stable environment to pursue this big dream that I had. And it was interesting because I quit my job. Just seemed so not the right thing to do now that I look back on it. But God was really preparing the way, because what ended up happening was I had 3 boys in the course of 4 years. And over that time, I know.
There's a lot of pregnancy. Very short span of time.
It was crazy. But during that time, our oldest son was actually very ill since birth, and he almost died a couple of times for different reasons. And we were battling, trying to figure out what was wrong with him. We knew something wasn't right, even though we were first-time parents. But it actually took 4.5 years for a diagnosis. We had a lot of doctors who didn't believe us or thought that we were kind of making things up or just kind of being crazy. But we had this son who was very... So it was kind of a God thing how we came across this rare disease. A friend of ours introduced it. She worked at the hospital and saw this rare disease, and we looked it up, and we just knew this is what he had. So we just basically pushed until we got the diagnosis. And we ended up going into the hospital. They put him under anesthesia and did some biopsies, and we found out that he did have the disease that we had said that he had. We knew he had it. Mm-hmm. And we really thought it was that moment where we were like, thank you, God, that we weren't crazy, and thank you, God, that you put that discernment in our hearts to keep pushing for our child and be his advocate.
Sure.
And we thought, okay, this is going to be a good thing. We're going to be able to start this journey. Well, what we didn't know was this disease was very new and very rare, and there wasn't a lot of help from the government financially. People just didn't know a lot about it. And we were very alone and became very isolated. It's a rare disease in the esophagus. It's an inflammatory disease, which then affected every area of his life. So when you have sort of a disease that kind of affects a major function as eating, your whole life has changed. So all this was going on. It was very difficult. And my second son then became really ill. And he started sleeping about 15 hours a day and had black circles under his eyes, and his abdomen was distended, and he was just really sick. And I never thought that he had the same disease because the symptoms were not the same. Not one symptom was the same. But he was not growing at all. So he wouldn't grow hair and teeth. Everything that he was eating was coming out whole. Like his body just couldn't process. So he ended up just being severely underweight, kind of what you see like on TV when you see like starving kids. He wasn't starving, but his body he looked like that.
Sure.
So it wasn't thriving. We went down this road, and he ended up getting diagnosed with the same disease. So here we had the same disease, 2 different children, 2 different sets of symptoms. Nothing was the same.
And this is not a hereditary disease, correct?
Well, we don't really know. I think that the research showing that it probably is. It's very new, so it's been around, I think, discovered in the last 20 years. Okay. So if you really think about that, that's very new in terms of medical diagnoses. So on top of this, I had a newborn. We had a house fire. Our house was on the market when that happened. My husband was on swing shift work, which meant he worked days and then he had some time off, then he worked nights and then days and then nights. He was never home, and when he was sleeping, and when he was off, his body was off. And we were pretty much in the trenches. Our doctor's appointments lasted like 7 hours long. We began this process of managing the disease, which meant they were having surgeries every 8 weeks. So we're at this point now. We've been at this for 5 years, and we've had over 30 surgeries. We travel to see a specialist. So when I say like we were under fire, I mean, there wasn't a day that I wanted to get up and put my feet on the floor, because I knew it meant medicine and medical and doctors and insurance, and all this was going on. They needed to drink a medical formula to survive, and it's an amino acid based formula. It's how they were getting nutrition. It's like what babies have when they're on a feeding tube.
Right.
It's $75 a can, and they drank 1 can a day.
Oh my gosh.
And it wasn't covered by insurance. And
wow.
Because of laws that were in place and that are still in place in the state of South Carolina right now. So our formula cost at that time was around $4,000 a month. And at the time it was more than my husband made. And we had zero help. And I just remember this time where my community just came together, and we would I found $1,000 in cash under my mat under my front door. And I was like, okay, well, let's pay the house. I don't remember a time where we couldn't buy the formula. We bought the formula, and we trusted that God was going to find a way to pay for our house and our insurance and for my husband and I to eat. And
wow. Now, were you a Christian from a young age? Because it sounds like, you were already a Christian in the middle of this trial.
Absolutely. I was saved when I was 6 years old, grew up in the church, singing in the church. But it's interesting because I feel like I kind of grew up not in a sheltered way, but in a way where, we had a lot of trials. Like my mom had cancer when I was a kid, and we went through that. But just as an adult, it was just kind of simple. Like I married my high school sweetheart, and I got a full ride to college, and I worked really hard, and I got a really good job teaching, and I was kind of singing on the side, and like life was really good. And so I really didn't understand what it meant to walk through the fire or to be on a journey like this. I didn't understand what it meant to rely on Jesus for everything.
Right.
I didn't understand what that meant until all of this. So at this time, my middle son was completely on the formula. So our life began to change because dinner time for him meant a bowl of ice. So he would drink the formula for nutrition, and then he would eat the ice to stimulate the chewing, just so he could chew something. So if you really think about this, we went through, there was no Thanksgiving. We didn't celebrate birthday. Like we didn't know how to have cookies for Santa. So we put ice out for Santa. How do you live in this world where every birthday party, every holiday, every classroom, everything is just completely centered around food? It's no one's fault. It's the way that the world works.
Right.
But we became isolated. I stopped singing altogether. I stopped writing. I didn't stop believing in God, but it was just, you could imagine what was on my personal plate and how I was trying to just make it through a day.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I was a mom of 3 boys, 4 and under. I had 2 kids in diapers.
That in itself is enough to drive a woman crazy. And then to have all health issues on top of it, and a husband who is working erratic hours is, oh my gosh, that's, really under fire. Absolutely. You said it. Oof.
And we became, we were the kind of family, we would love people, and we loved to be involved. And so we were always going out to eat and having fun and inviting people over to our home. We're hospitable. We love it. And this isolated us because we could no longer go out to eat. Our children could not eat anything that I didn't prepare. And as we were going on this journey of adding foods to their diet, because all food was taken away, and then we slowly added food back in over the years, but the foods weren't the same. So I couldn't cook a bowl of rice and everyone eat rice. I was cooking 5 different meals for all my different kids because my youngest son at this time was also having health issues and was having some white blood cell count issues, was tested for cystic fibrosis. We were looking at leukemia. Like a lot of things were going on with him too. He's actually completely healthy and fine today. So I have one of my streaks completely healthy. But at that time, he wasn't. I don't know what was going on with his GI tract or why things were happening. So he was on a special diet, had 2 kids with a rare disease. They were on separate special diets. My husband just ate whatever, and here I was trying to be healthy and eat clean, and it just was, it was crazy. All I did was grocery shop, plan, chop vegetables, clean dishes, change diapers, call insurance, give medicine, go to the doctor for 7 hours, prepare for surgery, go to surgery, recover from surgery. All I did.
Oh my gosh.
And a couple of years before that, I got to sing in front of 10,000 people and sign autographs. And so here I am as a woman with a dream, trying to reconcile where my life is headed without resenting my children or my family or my situation or even God.
Yeah.
And
what was the lowest point for you?
I think a couple points, but I remember the day that my second son was diagnosed. I remember being completely broken because we had started this journey with my older son. I knew what it meant for his life. I knew what it meant for us financially. I knew what it meant for us to add a second entire chronic illness on a family. And I just remember being hopeless. And then from that point on, I think it was a blur because it was a couple years. I don't mean like this was a couple months. This was a couple years of not even knowing how to wake up and do this. But I pinpoint that day that my second son was diagnosed because it was that realization that this is a lifelong journey for our family, and we're going to have to figure out how to do this.
Mm-hmm. So then in this, craziness of life and what it looks like, how did God come into that and help you and bring you out of that place?
I think for me, God brought peace and love in the form of friendship. And I was one of those people that just kind of loved everybody and had a lot of friends. But when we started going through the really tough trials, we kind of lost a lot of friends. And I don't blame anybody for that. I think it's the nature of going through chronic illness. A lot of people could not understand what we were going through. But what God did was God brought me 2 girls, 2 really great friends who would come over and just help me do my life. They would get me out of the bed when they knew that I needed to get out of the bed. One of them took my children to school and picked them up every single day for me, so I didn't have to do that. If I had a house showing, they were there to help me clean toilets and to take my dog over to their house so that she wasn't running around in the backyard. We would go get coffee if we needed a break. We would sit down and vent if we needed to vent. We would cry if we needed to cry. And they didn't expect anything from me in return because I literally at that point I had nothing to give. And so what God sent is these 2 women who were just willing to serve another woman who was broken. And my circle got smaller, but I think that's what I needed. I needed 2 people in my life who knew exactly what I was going through, who didn't judge any state that I was at, and just loved me. And so we've been on this journey together. So as I've started to come out of all of that brokenness, we're able to see what God has done in all of our lives, and it's just a beautiful thing. Loyalty is a beautiful thing. And I love loyalty, and I'm thankful for that. And I think that's when God started to kind of turn it for me. I started to see that I had a support system. And in terms of like moving back into music, a lot of people, when they're hurting, they go to music for pain, but I wasn't like that. I was completely numb. I wanted nothing to do with it. But my sweet husband, as amazing as he is, he knew me. We're high school sweethearts. I sang at our high school graduation. He knows I've been singing my whole life. He's seen me sing in festivals in my hometown for 4 people. He just knows me. That he knows music made me alive, and that was what was missing. But I didn't, at the time, I didn't know how to do my life and to live in purpose and dream at the same time. Okay. But what my husband did for me is in a very interesting way. He told me that I was a waste of talent. And he didn't mean it, he's a very kind person. It wasn't a harsh thing. It was a wake-up call for me to say, I feel purposeless because I'm not living in purpose. And the only thing that makes me feel purpose is this gift that God has given me from an early age to connect with people through music. Wow. And it's just the way that he said it, it was truth and love. And I needed to hear it. And he just basically said, I want my McKenna back. Our kids